Hey guys, Coffee Cranks here, and today I wanted to give you a promised update on my Summon Raging Spirit League starter that I'm planning to play in SSF on Friday. So the main change from the patch notes was the removal of Divine Blessing, and I did run tier 1 maps in Standard just to test it out, and I gotta say I didn't really struggle with anything, and the damage numbers look totally fine to me, so I don't think it's really a big deal at least after the campaign. And maybe in high-end maps, you can notice the difference in damage, but I wouldn't be too worried about that. And this was, by the way, on 4 links, so I wanted to simulate the league start scenario when you don't really have easy access to 5 links, or let alone 6 links, so yeah, 4 links is not a problem whatsoever. The second big change was the nerf of resistances around the shield mastery cluster, so right here. And because of that, you're not going to cap spell suppression anymore. So instead of 100%, you have 88. However, I did pick up the mastery on spell suppression cluster, and I got chance to spell suppress is lucky, which gives you 99%. And yes, you can say 99% is not quite 100%. However, it's good enough and you don't really have to worry about that one tiny percent. Plus, don't forget that you have block chance near capped and spell block chance capped. So again, this is not going to be a big deal. I think 99% is more than enough. And if you still can't get over the fact that you're losing that 1% chance to spell suppress, I did get the armor mastery here. So you take 30% reduced extra damage from critical strikes, which is gonna make you even more tanky. So all in all, I would consider this a buff. Some people pointed out that the auras got nerfed, and that's true, so in particular determination, and I don't know yet how it's gonna feel in higher tier maps, so the numbers went down. I think it was something like 62% maybe, so it went down to 49 here, as you can see. And like I said, I don't know how it's going to affect the high tier mapping and whether the character is going to be too squishy. I assume that it won't be, because you have block and you have spell suppression, and on top of that you have a little bit of armor, and you were never supposed to get high armor numbers. So I would say let's just wait and see how it works out. Another major quality of life update is the usage of loadouts, and I'm not sure if they existed before or it was introduced in the recent patch. But yeah, you can switch the loadout. For example, I can press here and I'm getting the tree and the skill set and the item set for early maps. And if I click here, I'm getting it swapped to the endgame set, and everything gets changed, including the tree and the skill set. So it's really convenient. You don't have to click everywhere to, change the skill set, then change the item set, then change the tree. No, you don't have to do it. You just have to click here and then click here and you're done. So that's really, really nice. Also, just a small remark, I did change some resistances in the endgame gear because of the nerf of the resistances on that block cluster. I had to juggle resistances a little bit, and I did apply catalysts on rings, which weren't there before. But it's not a big deal, and honestly, you don't even need bone rings. You can always get, let's say, amethyst rings to cap your chaos resistance. So this is really a tiny, tiny detail, so it doesn't really matter that much. I also wanted to draw your attention to the fact that I swapped Minor God to Shikari, because I actually did die in tier 1 map from poison. My chaos resistance was basically non-existent, and normally I never run with minus 30% chaos resistance right after campaign. So normally I play in trade, so I buy some gear and I try to cap my chaos resistance as much as possible right away. And this time it wasn't the case, because I actually was using the campaign gear. So just keep that in mind. Chaos damage can be very dangerous, so if you want to avoid those deaths, definitely take Shikari, and you can sometimes switch to Aberath when you have Burning Ground in maps. Other than that, I wouldn't worry too much about swapping the gods. Another update is the loot filter that I made specifically for this build and specifically for SSF. So if you're playing in trade and you want to play this build, just keep that in mind. You might have to disable more things, because I want to show potentially more things in SSF, and I want to pick up those items because I don't really have access to trade. As it stands right now, I completely changed the rare tiering in this section in the loot filter. So if you want to pick up items for other builds, this will not work for you. So you will have to change the section entirely. Coming from the trade league, I'm not big on picking up things from the ground, so I try to minimize that. And I think in SSF, you also don't need to pick up everything, so I try to incorporate that idea into the loot filter. And I want to spend the majority of the time on the actual build progression to get to do some things that I want to do and not be stuck with the inventory management. For the jewelry section, basically tier 1 and tier 2 are shown, tier 3 is not shown, and tier 1 is the best in slot gear and tier 2 is slightly worse. And the reason, for example, bone ring is tier 2 is because you likely won't pick up a really good bone ring, and if it's not that good, it's better to use something like amethyst ring because of resistances. For weapons and armors, it gets a little more complicated than that because you basically need two sets of gear. One is the one that you're gonna acquire right after campaign. It's the energy shield / armor base type. And one is for the end game. It's gonna be armor / evasion type. So both are shown, but only the best items. So for example, if you scroll to evasion armor, you will see that for helmets, you only display in pig face bassinets, nightmare bassinets, and fluted bassinets. So top 3 bases are normally shown, and if there's a special base, then top 4. If something is unclear about the loot filter or just in general, don't hesitate to leave your comment below in this video and I'll answer it as soon as possible. For crafting, I also a little bit redefined the tiers, so I only show tier 1 of item level 84 and 86. And these are the only items on the tier 1 list, so it's basically best in slot items and item bases. And full dragon scale is there in case you don't get the unique chest because it's basically a world drop, so I don't really want to count on that. That's why I put full dragon scale in the tier 1 list just in case I don't drop the unique. The campaign section is heavily changed and customized to display only the items that you need to pick up. So if you see something on the ground, you probably need to pick it up. I am also hiding all jewels except cluster jewels and abyss jewels, and in particular, I'm only showing ghastly eye jewels. So if you don't want that, you need to enable the jewels in the other endgame gear section. So just keep that in mind. One more change from the patch notes is that Friendship Divination card was added back to the pool of divination cards, which is super exciting because it gives you Owl's Uprising. So that might actually be a reliable source of Owl's Uprising aside from the Crystal King boss in Delph. However, there is no information on where it's going to drop, so I don't really have any info on that. I also don't know how rare it's going to be. I'm gonna guess it's gonna be rare, so maybe don't rely on it too much, but keep an eye for it, and if you see it, great, then you can target farm Owl's Uprising in a different way than just fighting the boss. So that's it for today, and I'll post the updated POB link and also the loot filter link in the description, and you can check it out. And also, I will probably be updating the loot filter as I go in the league, because I don't know yet if I'm going to show too much, so I might adjust it. So just follow the loot filter and check out my stream. And don't forget, it's at twitch.tv/coffeecranked, so stop by and ask me anything. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and see you at League Start.